Aloha. This video I wanted to break down the observation of meme consciousness, which is just another form of, or another way of saying the Western ideologies or the colonial consciousness, this whole idea of so-called civilization and humanity and culture and society that has been generated out of ignorance, the ignorance out of bliss. Ignorance is bliss consciousness, the unconscious relationship to systems like racism, white supremacy, that's just accepted in society. So this is the meaning of this meme consciousness video. The real depths of the meaning is to bring light to the the identity of like being comfortable with this diseased interaction we call Western society. This is an idea that has been invented. White supremacy was an idea that was invented. Heliocentrism was an idea that was invented. Humanity, these words that we use, these are ideas that explain something else, and what people are doing are just generating different ways to explain their own enslavement. And this is basically the epicenter of the meme conscious, or the mainstream machine stream meme consciousness. Like I was saying in the last video, it's designed to distract you. It's reactionary. It's this lost sort of confident and connected to something that isn't really connected to something that isn't organic, for lack of a better word. The something that these individuals are connected to is something that has been generated out of thin air. So it wasn't grown out of the earth. So like the ego, like just look at the meme consciousness, or the consciousness of the entire Western so-called world right now, or Western so-called civilization, the whole world of Western ideologies. That whole thing can be seen as the consciousness of a celebrity. So like how celebrities are like talentless celebrities who have this ego of, this extremely talented individual, but these individuals were given everything that they have by the system, and the system itself is artificial. And the reasons why they could sell this artificial reality, this is why they have to use these kids like Billie Eilish. The reasons why they can make this seem real to large numbers of people, or organic to large numbers of people, is because the large numbers of people over time, their generations have been conditioned and convinced to accept this adolescent version of reality called the mainstream machine stream media, the mainstream reality. They were convinced and conditioned over time to accept this meme consciousness as normal, as acceptable, as the reality. So all of the people who are pumped out of that system have like pre-approved credibility. They have pre-approved. It doesn't matter if they have talent or not. So that's the thing. Some of these are mixed. Some of these people are mixed in with people who have talent and people who don't have talent. And that's an automatic clue to you to realize that this is not about the art. So if it's not about the talent, it's not about the art, it must be about something else. So what are these people representing that is outside of their art? They're representing and they're exuding this acceptance and total love and appreciation of the establishment of enslavement. So we wear this, or people wear this on them, like we wear our chains, we wear our limitations on us. You can see it. So conforming to the system that has enslaved all of your ancestors, or focusing all of your attention and your energy on what's acceptable for that system is the same as like shitting on all of your ancestors. Like your words and your time is the most important thing. So if you as an indigenous individual are focusing all of your time and energy on the distractions put out there by the system, so this is just another way to define the coon consciousness. So the the consciousness of the individuals who have nothing else but the system. So it's easier to see when you use words like that, like coon, like that word wouldn't be used like for this individual, like Billie Eilish, because she gets something from the system, like automatically, inherently, by birth, through the system of racism, white supremacy. She has a status that we don't have. So when you don't have that and you're still protecting the system, then you're called a coon. And then when you are a part of an entire society or so-called civilization that is defending and protecting and distracting from the deeper issues beyond the coon consciousness, if you're a part of that system, then you are also accepted and praised and put up on a pedestal for the whole world to see, because you're saying the right things, which are the wrong things for your people. You're focusing on the right stories and the right issues, which are the wrong issues and the wrong stories for your people. So everybody who, whether you're consciously or unconsciously telling the stories, and if you have a selling point or some kind of way, they will chew you up and spit you out into their world. And before you know it, you'll be done with, because you're only useful to that system as long as you're saying what the system wants you to say. You're only useful to that world as long as the system can utilize your ignorance for their benefit. As soon as you become cognizant of how you're being used, or the ignorance that you are portraying to the rest of the world, you will be cast out. You'll be thrown away like nothing. And so-called celebrities know this. So back to the original, what I was saying before, is that why they have to keep this on an adolescent sort of conscience, why they have to keep promoting and building all of these 16, 17, and 18-year-old celebrities, is because that's the same reason why they keep putting out movies rated 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 years old. Your movies are PG-13. They're rated R, NC-17. All of your mainstream reality is based upon that level of consciousness, because that level of consciousness is comfortably ignorant. It's confidently ignorant. So you can see, like with this 17 or 16 or 17-year-old child, she has a sense of confidence. She hasn't experienced the world. She hasn't had any loss or any kind of any kind of depths of interactions within society that involve the macro realm. She's been consumed by the micro reality. And this meme consciousness is the language within the micro experience. So once you graduate from high school and go into college, you're pretty much like thrown into the macro world. And at that point, you start to become cognizant of your surroundings and how the pieces are put together. So once you start doing that, you start removing the ignorance from your interactions, your consciousness. So you're no longer an asset to that system. So this is why people, when they get older in Hollywood, they're not needed anymore. This is why child stars get thrown out, is because they're so knowledgeable about the system from the get-go that by the time they're teenagers, they are completely aware of the corruption and everything that's there. But a lot of these teenagers that come from like a social media setting, and then they're like automatically thrown into the meme world, they don't really have an awareness. They don't have they don't have any kind of frames of reference from the establishment to see that the establishment is using them for its own benefit at their expense. So this is why all these celebrities start to go crazy and lose themselves, because they never had themselves. They were caught at a certain version of themselves and were conditioned by fear, ignorance, money, and the system itself to maintain that sense of ignorance, because that sense of ignorance is utilized as a weapon against the people that are influenced by these adolescent people. So this is why, getting into the art itself, this is why all of your music is focused on love, this idea of love, where you have all these people talking about like every song is like, ooh, baby this and baby that and love this and love that, and I'm so sad. Like everything is so depressing. I've gone through so much in my life. Like everything is about the micro relationships. Every single movie is about this like egotistical version of relationships. This shallow, basically adolescent love. Oh, I love you so much. Love, 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 love. The drama, romance. Even in your horror films, there's a love storyline. In your sports movies, there's a love storyline, a love connection. In your action movies, there's a love storyline. Your superheroes, your cartoons, there always has to be a love storyline, because the love storyline connects straight to the adolescent versions of what's real in your experience. The only thing real to a 17, 18-year-old child is the idea of love. Nothing else in their reality has to be real. They have no responsibilities in life. They have no critical thoughts like responsibilities in life. They have everything. Everything is at the beginnings for them. So they have all this hope. At the same time, it's balanced by all this fake humility in the sign or in the in the guise of like being okay with not knowing anything for the rest of the world. So there's a sense of confidence that comes with being a teenager. So you can be yourself pretty much, because you're not trying to be an adult. You're not trying to be something else. So yourself, your version of yourself will be more actually, it'll be more reminiscent of who and what you are and who and what real people are than older so-called real people, than older people, because older people have downloaded a lot of bullshit to hide the versions of themselves that they don't want people to see. So what the mainstream media does is that it says it doesn't even televised. It doesn't even put those people on television because they are not an asset to society. The only people that are assets to their mainstream Western psychology are the ones who either love and cherish this world or are completely ignorant to the depths of this world. So teenagers are not only ignorant to the depths of this world, but they are in this sense of like overly sensitized, overly hyper stimulated. They're at this peak of like how Disneyland has a peak for children. And then it starts to deteriorate. But there's a peak moment in time where Disneyland is very effective on children. And there's like a time where Disneyland is not at all effective on children. Well, the mainstream media has that same kind of thing, or the people, how there's sections inside of people or timelines inside of people that are very affected by the adolescent meme sort of consciousness. And that age group is not really an age group. It's a frequency of consciousness, and that frequency of consciousness is manipulated and evolved over the years through the celebrities that get birthed through this process. So all of the ignorant celebrities that they put out there, and they have the whole world to pull from. So you can find talentless people and people with talent and mix them all up and throw it around like it's a natural occurrence. And when you have the control of the entire world and the artistic expression of the entire world, it's just the same way they have the control of YouTube. Google controls YouTube, so you're only going to see what Google YouTube wants you to see. You have the illusion of freedom. You have the illusion of art. You have the illusion of evolving art and consciousness and so on and so forth. You have the illusion of confidence with these arrogant and inexperienced adolescent children who who are just overly sensitized with social media's version of love, social media's version of confidence, social media's version of wisdom, social media's version of family, culture, interaction, social media's version of truth, social media's version of science. So social media is interchangeable with machine stream reality or the mainstream reality. So when you have generations upon generations of people who are living in this consciousness, in this version of intelligence that has nothing to do with the original intelligence of the people who are demonized throughout society, which is connecting directly to the land and resources, which is the power of the people who are generated or who are birthed out of that artificial society, they represent the same thing that people like Mark and Patricia represented in the flat earth community. They represent this totally lost and hopeful and thinking that they have something real, but they're ignorant to the bigger picture. But something is there. In this case, Billie Eilish has talent. In the case of Flat Earth, they had information, so that's equivalent to talent because it's new, it's something new, it's catchy. So Flat Earth has information like Billie Eilish has talent. So she's a good example of the talent that is inside each and every individual that is exclusive to them, that gets shut down because they buy into the world. So when people who aren't celebrities, like when we grow up in the streets, we don't have the mainstream media seeking us out because we don't have the look, we don't have the complexion for protection, we don't have the the identity that the system needs to portray ignorance to the rest of the world. So-called white people have inherently this identity or this meme consciousness that's attractive to the rest of the world, because so-called white people have been used as the mascots to sell the identity of the Western ideologies to the rest of the world. So so-called white people are heavily invested. They have a conflict of interest with the depths of truth. So let me say this again. So-called white people and people who are invested in the mainstream consciousness, the meme consciousness, they have a conflict of interest with the depths of truth that involve removing the powers of this system and exposing the powers of this system. So even the biggest truth that's out there, one of the biggest truth that's out there, the so-called flat earth, you can see how that is even powerless to the consciousness that involves the observer, the experiencer. It doesn't matter how much truth you have if the individual that's interacting or consuming that truth, that information, that individual is largely not there. They don't have the capacity to activate that information. Not only that, their activation of information is based upon another kind of machine, a machine that only shoots out fast food. So they will take whatever kind of truth. It doesn't matter if that truth is as big as the universe. If the truth it doesn't matter how big a truth is. If the interpreter of that truth is as small as a meme consciousness, then that truth will be shrunk down to a meme consciousness. This is what the so-called flat earth leaders did with their flat earth conference. They did this to the storyline of flat earth. So they killed it before the war even started. See, the war isn't even started right now, and they generated all of this ammo for the system to use against the people with these fake ass flat earthers out there. So they say, oh, they just used what they were using for themselves. So this is what I was trying to warn them all these years, saying that they're going to use this shit against you. They're going to use your own ignorance, your own like happy-go-lucky approach to this situation. They're going to use that against you. That's obvious. People who grew up, outside of that, that world, we already knew this. We recognized this from the get-go. It was not at all a surprise when Netflix came up with the documentary making so-called flat earthers look mentally unstable, look like idiotic. But to them, you can see they were totally surprised. Why? Because they had those blinders on. They had that meme consciousness, Western civilization, that trust in other white people consciousness. They think, because they thought it's all equal. They think we're all the same, and they think that no, the story is what matters. The story is what matters. The consciousness, the information, the confidence, the trust, the comfort in this reality is what matters. So the same way Billie Eilish is being used to portray this comfort with opulence, ego, and also portray this idea of being like a real person. The last people that have anything close to anything real are the 17, 18, and 19-year-olds in that mainstream reality, because they haven't been beat down by the world. They haven't been completely exposed to the industry that they are being used to build up. But over time, once they grow in that industry, then they start to pull away from it, because they realize what it's being used for, what they're being used for, and the limitations that come along just accepting that world. So you can see that adults don't even have this synthetic version of confidence, this synthetic version of, like, she says things that are very wise at times. Even like people on social media or Instagram people or YouTubers, even though they're part of that system, they say things that are really like deep at times. And what happens is that's on purpose. They are used to say all this stuff just the same way like love and humanity is used to put out this fake version of, knowledge and intelligence about the world and reality. Like, oh, you're wise, or people who are, in that world of, they convert that to wisdom the same way being old is converted to being wise. It's not true. That's like white people saying that being in control of the world is equivalent to the evolution of consciousness. That's not true. That's a manipulating of the whole conversation to create an outcome, to create an idea that is connected to deeper ideas, an idea that is put on the forefront, like these individuals, like Billie Eilish, this individual is put on the forefront to distract you from something deeper. Why? Because, so what are the distractions? The distractions are like what they're talking about, what are their demographics. So the demographic alone that they pull is a form of distraction because it shuts down a whole version of consciousness. So adolescent, like teenagers, are going to be attracted to this kind of individual because they relate to this teenage version of love and angst and interacting with society. They have the same taste in music. Teenage adolescents coming out of high school right into the military. It's funny I say that because I was meaning into the world. People are going right out of childhood world into the adult world. That's a big demographic. It's a huge, we don't see it as a demographic of people, but we're getting close to understanding what that is when people in mainstream society are talking about millennials. So millennials is another term used to describe a demographic of people, a type of thought. So millennials is used to beat down an individual at a certain age group that is at a certain level of consciousness that's challenging the system. So they have to dictate and tell people what millennials are saying. This is why they use the term millennials all the time, because they're trying to tell you what you are saying. They're like, no, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is way deeper than what you've pigeonholed us into saying. And now we know why you're saying what you're saying, because you want to distract us from the deeper storylines that are beyond what you're saying. So the demographics of people is another way of explaining how the macro story interacts with people. So people, an individual is an individual. They're a thinker. They're an artist. They do this. They do that. But that person is also part of a demographic. Is that person a part of the baby boomers, the millennials, the teenagers, or whatever it is? Like all these different groups of people. So what I'm saying is that overall, around the world, the transition 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old, that demographic, that group of people is a demographic of people that is very influential, non-physically influential, and physically influential to the rest of the world. That influence exists in the consciousness of every single mode of society, from entertainment to education to politics and so on and so forth. Largely, the mainstream world is focused on that type of that meme consciousness intelligence, because that's a way to maintain ignorance through the lowest form of adult versions of consciousness. Ignorance is maintained through society by society or the mainstream reality adding information or propaganda or publicizing this comfortably ignorant version of person. So this comfortably ignorant version of reality person is an asset to the individuals who need to maintain that ignorance on a massive scale. So this is why people like Billie Eilish are they're only, what's the word? They're only useful to the system as long as they're telling the stories that the system needs that those people to portray. So the micro depths, like, oh, that was a very deep thing that she said, or that whoever says, that stuff doesn't matter because it's packaged and it was said by somebody who's disconnected from the depths of that reality. Somebody who's like, none of the depths, anything that they say on a macro scale that even sounds like a macro environment, like a macro topic, becomes a moot point, because the micro individual or the individual on the whole overall is a manifestation of that macro ignorance. So confident micro egotistical consciousness beings are being promoted through society to maintain the consciousness of the masses. And the biggest demographic of people that you're going to have who are going to be confident and have talent and have some kind of attractive nature to them in some kind of way through their talent or whatever it is, the biggest demographic of people that to choose from are going to be the 18, 17, 18, 19-year-old demographic of people, because they can catch them young, they can get them to sign the contract very early, and then once they're in that world, that it's very difficult to let all of that go now, because they've generated all of this love and all of these connections with all these fans and their audience, so they can't really let that go. So now they have this relationship with the audience members that it now generates a new version of them. So they have this person that has been generated off of the artificial person, and that person now overtakes the original person that they were. So where people like Billie Eilish or any kind of celebrities, they can't really go anywhere, they can't do anything, because they have millions of these lost souls, these lost people who are just like following them around, both consciously and unconsciously, because those individuals have nothing else. They only have them. So like their expressions, this is why love is such a big deal in society, is because love like taps in, that idea of love taps into all demographics of people. It taps into the reproductive cycle, so that makes it more real. It taps into the relationships, which is universal, and that's more real. The idea of love itself is a unifying meme. And this is why. So you got to really break it down when you're looking at these systems. Like it's not that difficult to see what are the biggest things that are used. Like I'm using an example with this video right now. This character that you're looking at, as real as she might be to herself and her family and her friends and all that other stuff, as real as this individual might be on a micro scale, on a macro scale, largely, this person is non-existent. They don't exist on like the real macro scale. On the artificial macro scale, they're huge. They can go anywhere and be noticed and recognized. But on the micro scale that exists outside of the meme consciousness mind controls, they're basically non-existent. They are a non-issue. Like this is why I'm using her as an example in this video right now, because she just represents everybody. She represents the Snookies, the Kardashians, the Will Smiths. But this is the thing why I used hers, because she represents a version of society that prides itself in not being like the Snookies and the Kardashians and all those other people. So that's how the system, and that's why the system uses these individuals to add complexity to the system, as if it's different, as if it's not all bad. The same way I said in movies, in Hollywood movies, they reveal this information about how corrupt the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, all these government agencies are. But then they sprinkle in like some good FBI agents in the system or in the script. You know, they make themselves out to be the villains and the superheroes all at the same time. And at the end of the movie, or at the end of the day, you don't know how to think or what to believe or how to feel or where your power comes from, because you've been both taken to a peak and dropping off that cliff. Your life has been pre-chewed for you. So you don't have to think, you don't have to digest, you don't have to act, you don't have to engage, you don't have to train, you don't have to teach, you don't have to do any of this stuff, because society is doing it for you. And society, or the mainstream, the meme consciousness, it has the illusion of doing that for you in your reality by having the illusion of doing it with these celebrities. So the entire demographic of 16, 17, 18-year-olds, they are raised with people like Billie Eilish. And even bringing this kind of individual into the hip-hop realms and all these other kind of like societies or demographics of people that are very specific. That's another version of like the new age agenda. We're all one, we're all human, everybody is equal, this and that. This is why talent agencies, or the mainstream reality, has to heavily inundate the mainstream consciousness with so-called white people. Because they are the like I said in the last video, they are the mascots for Western civilization. And they are the ones who will, at the drop of a dime or at the drop of a hat, automatically defend this system. As I said in the last video, your justice is a threat to their privilege. So the information involving your justice and the information that's true to you is a threat to the individuals who get something from this system, even if they call themselves truthers. The privilege that comes along with being comfortable, just comfortable in life, comfortable in your own skin. So-called black people, or people who are so-called not white, they can't even, when you wake up in the morning and you walk out of the door, you're perceived by people and society and the government and, you know, authority figures. You're perceived by them a certain way that so-called white people, they don't have that. And that's downplayed in society when people say, oh, yeah, we were all enslaved. You're missing the point. This is a whole psychology. This is a medical study that has, you can write encyclopedias on it. This is to say that there is a psychological and spiritual, there are psychological and spiritual implications from this is not to say that other people haven't been, you know, fucked with over time. This is to emphasize how what is being portrayed to us, not by us, to affect us, has a effect on us that doesn't have an effect on other people the same way it's affecting us. And we're saying we need to deal with this situation. We need to talk about this. We need to do something about this. And the people who are not affected by that are saying, no, that's a non-issue. We're all affected the same way. And so that's the same kind of confidence and arrogance and ignorance that comes with it's reflective of like Billie Eilish in the mainstream media. So in the truther community, they do the same thing. They say, oh, well, you're just saying that's wrong, and what it really means is this, and this is what this brings us together, and you're just divisive, and you're just tearing people apart. And like, wait a second. You're not doing anything for bringing people together by just turning, you know, these concepts into memes. You're doing what celebrities do when they stagnate time, just by like the celebrities do the same thing to love the same way truthers do the same thing with love, the same way truthers do with truth. Like and truthers do with truth and like harmony and unity, and we're all one, and can't you just see how we're all the same? See, that's sold in the truther communities the same way love and adolescent belief systems and trust and confidence in that whole world is used in the mainstream meme consciousness world. So the benefit of using these adolescent celebrities is that they steal time by televising these individuals who are completely comfortable in that world of ignorance, in that genocidal world of colonial mind controls. Total comfort, total love and appreciation of their own ignorance. Not only a comfort in it, but a celebration of it. We wear the chains, we wear the clothes, we wear the makeup, we wear the symbols that represent our own enslavement. So you have people like Billie Eilish who throw like a monkey wrench into just like imagine Billie Eilish installed into the baby boomers consciousness. It'd be like a total. So that's the same thing that's happening today. And you can see in the background how you have like a Lauryn Hill album and a Kendrick Lamar album up there, and like all this Michael Jackson. This is to raise these individuals up to this status. The same way when you listen to the radio and you hear or like Michael Jackson radio on Pandora. This is a known one. You listen to Michael Jackson radio on Pandora, and then Justin Timberlake comes on. You're like, what the fuck? How the fuck is Justin Timberlake at all on Pandora radio? It's because they need to raise the consciousness and the so-called equivalence of their people by parasiting off of your people. And putting it subconsciously, like Billie Eilish is sitting right here with a Lauryn Hill album right on top of her head. The Miseducation album, right on top of her head. So that's, all of her demographic is not really going to know about Lauryn Hill, but they're going to get that subconscious ping. It's going to affect them in some kind of way. And they're going to make equivalent someone like Billie Eilish to Lauryn Hill. And whether an individual does that or not, society is going to do that, and they already are doing that in this whole grand scheme of things. So, let's see, did I pretty much hit everything that I wanted to on this? Meme consciousness. So yeah, you can see these are kids. These are little children in a little clubhouse surrounded by everything that they love. Completely comfortable with the world the way it is. And that is an asset to a system that wants to control masses of people. So what they'll do is they'll create platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Hollywood, the mainstream media, political channels, like the Young Turks was used to create another platform for another version of like the millennials consciousness that was obviously not digging on the baby boomers consciousness of Democrats and Republicans. So they installed this progressive version of political interaction to shut people up and to create some kind of team for people to jump onto. So, they install Bernie Sanders into the conversation next to a Hillary Clinton, and next thing you know, you got people running around with stickers on their vehicles, because that's what it's about. You convince people on the micro scale with their representatives how to be better on a micro scale, but really it doesn't matter because the system just wants you to put that bumper sticker on your car, because that's what they really need. They need that televising of the system, the same way Billie Eilish is televising genocide through the colonial system and being comfortable and happy in that system and hopeless, and this is the whole get over it mentality. Televising and promoting people, adolescent people, ignorant people, what they're ignorant of is they're ignorant of their whole part in being hopeless. They're ignorant because they don't even, they're hopeless to the point of not even realizing that there needs to be a revolution. There already have been revolutions. There's a revolution going on right now. These people are all ignorant to it, hopelessly ignorant to it, ignorantly blissful in their ignorance. And this is a need that needs to be out there, because this is like I said, the 17, 18, 19-year-old demographic of people is only natural for people who are 17, 18, 19-year-olds. But that, you can see how that is, it's no longer natural for people over time. People grow out of it. And what people do is they grow out of that and into themselves. And when you grow into yourself, you're empowering yourself. So the system doesn't want you to grow into yourself and doesn't want you to empower yourself. So it televises and publicizes all these people who are comfortably ignorant and happy in their own ignorance to maintain a space of, well, you can only be happy when you get your happiness the same way these people get their happiness. You will only experience love when you experience love the same way these people experience love. You will only experience justice and revolution only when the people they televise have the appearance of experiencing justice and revolution. So this is why you had your celebrities thrown into the political scene, and going to be thrown into the political scene in the future even more so, because they represent a version of ignorance that is largely subconscious. So is anything like what are these people talking about right now? Like this whole conversation, what do you think they're talking about? So they're talking about what's acceptable in the micro worlds of adolescent consciousness, meme consciousness beings. Meme consciousness beings. So, high five on that. Peace out.